Well, now we've got a few moments here with Patrick Regan from XLP. Welcome to the campsite.
Good morning. Yeah, it looks nice. Looks warmer in here anyway.
Tell us about XLP. What is XLP?
XLP is a youth and community charity that I started 16 years ago. So we work in the inner city of London, working in schools, working on estates, working with kids, I guess, who everyone else has written off. So we've got double-decker buses that travel onto estates. We've got people living on the estates. And then we also run mentoring programs across the UK, helping people engage with those on the margins, which has been incredible.
Brilliant. One of the themes that we're looking at is kind of staying the course and all that kind of stuff. Has that been the story of XLP so far?
Yeah, it's true. You know, I've done this, I founded it. So been doing this now for about 20 years. And in those times, you know, I've seen some amazing things happen, but I've also seen some kids being killed. I had a young boy called Damilola Taylor who lived just 400 yards away from me, got stabbed in the knee, bled to death in the stairwell in Peckham. So you just go through some really tough moments where you think, God, actually, you know, what is going on here? And I always say to people, there's two ways you can cope with adversity. One is you can try and go around it, or somehow you've got to go through it. And actually, the only way you can go through it is holding on to your faith, you know. And sometimes I hear, particularly on television, Christian television, is, you know, come to God and all your problems will disappear. Well, actually, my experience has been the opposite. I think for the Apostle Paul, it was the opposite as well. He was doing pretty well until he came to God, and then it all went pear-shaped. But the fact that we have is in those times of adversity, we realise that God keeps hold of our hand and keeps there with us. And so he's there through all those times.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the poverty situation in London like? Because that's one of the things that you say is that you tackle that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What's actually going on in London?
I think it's crazy, really, because there are postcodes that you can live in that if you live where, you know, in one particular postcode, you're likely to live 10 years less than if you live in another postcode. And I think sometimes when you look at a city like London, you think, well, there's no poverty there, surely. Well, actually, 53% of kids are growing up below the poverty line. And I think what often happens, what I see happen, is that particularly the kids in my community, they look pretty good. You know what I mean? They've got some bling, they've got some nice trainers, and you sort of go, what's their problem? They've got all they need. Actually, they would rather miss meals and look good for their mates. And that's often what's going on, because no one wants to be called poor. And sometimes, actually, the language you use in the church is fairly patronising. No one wants to be labelled, I'm poor, and we need to go and help the poor people. Actually, they've got dignity, and they want to be worked with, and not just done things for. And so the whole issue around how we handle poverty and how we engage with those that are struggling with poverty is absolutely crucial.
Absolutely. And you wrote a book called No Ceiling to Hope, which is like real-life stories of grace in action. What are some of those stories?
Well, I decided to write a book around, you know, sometimes we look at these big issues like addiction, poverty, gangs, homelessness, even politics, and we think it's completely hopeless. And it can feel completely overwhelming, can't it, when you sort of look at the news. So I wanted to write about people and situations that I'd been in where I'd literally sort of seen just the most inspirational things happening. So for one of the stories, one of my favourite places on earth is Trenchtown in Jamaica. So I go there quite a lot. It's where Bob Marley grew up. Yeah, so I've been Bob Marley's original home. I'm quite cool. And from January to June, there were 600 people shot. You know, you go into a place in Ghana where I helped build a school over there, and there's kids prostituting themselves because that's the only way they can bring money for their children. And you start seeing those things, you think there's no hope. But in every community I went to, I've met these crazy old ladies who are just determined to make a difference. I met this woman in Trenchtown who, she said, you know, because it's gangs everywhere, you know. I mean, kids the age of 15, 16 shooting people. She said, Patrick, gunman put a gun to my head one day and said, give us money and I'll protect you. And she said, I looked him in the eye. I said, who do you think you are, Jesus? Like this. And then she built a school in the most violent place of Trenchtown that now is bringing hope to hundreds of people. You go to Ghana and this woman, again, who's persevered against all the odds, you know, who's had setback after setback after setback. Now there's 60 kids in this school who are just dreaming about being doctors and lawyers and giving back to their community. So I'm inspired by those people who have just kept going. And if you ask their secret, you know, was it a magic moment for you? Often they'll say, you know what? I've just learned to pick myself up, brush myself down, and I just kept believing, because the cause, the vision, is the most important thing.
Absolutely. One of the things that XLP provides is like a drop-in center for one-to-one mentoring.
Yeah.
How important have you found that service to be? How significant?
Yeah, I mean, basically, XLP, we work with about 1,000 kids one-to-one every week, and it's amazing, and there's some amazing stuff that's going on. But about 3 or 4 years ago now, I wanted to go deeper with the kids that we were working with. And all the research shows that if a kid gets excluded from school, they've got something like 70% more chance of being in a gang or being homeless or being unemployed. So I approached this local school and said, could you give me 20 kids on the verge of exclusion? And the school like, we've got 400, where'd you like to start? And we identified 20 kids. We then got 20 volunteers from the local church. And then we said, the deal is this: can you give us 2 hours a week for 12 months to mentor a young person? And we'll match you, we'll do the training for you, we'll do everything. And it's just been incredible. We've just seen kids who have, you know, been told by their teachers you're going to end up dead or in prison or in a dead-end job, go on and get 3 A's in their A-levels. You know, we've seen there's one girl called Grace who was 15. She had no mum and dad. She lived with an auntie on Old Kent Road. She had boundary issues with older men, and 14 years old. And we get a phone call about 18 months ago now. You say, you know Grace? And we're like, she's been excluded. I went, we're going to nominate her for head girl. And it's those type of things that make a difference. So what we've done in the last 6 months is, because we're so passionate about this, we've said to the church in the UK and overseas, actually, it's been fascinating, we will train you to set up your own mentoring program. So we'll either come to you and train you as a group of churches, or come to us. We are right in central London by Liverpool Street Station, and we will give away everything we've learned in the last couple of years. But we want it to be your mentoring program. This isn't about XLP going all over the place. We're too tired doing what we do in London. This is about us saying, could you do it? And that started already. You know, we've already had like about 54 churches sign up. People are doing it in Guatemala with street children. There's people doing it in, talking about France, Australia. Because I think people sit in church going, I want to do something, but I don't want to play pool and table tennis anymore. I've done that for years. And you sort of get into maintenance youth work if you're not careful. But maybe they've got skills and gifts they can give to something else. So
good.
Involved.
So good, love it. If people are watching this or listening to your stories and they're like, man, I want to get involved with XLP, what's the best way to do that?
Well, the best thing to do is to get involved, particularly with the mentoring program, which we'd love churches across the UK and from overseas to sign up, we've got a particular website for the mentoring, which is www.xlm, not P, xlm.org.uk. And you can sign up online, you can find out about the training, you can find out who else is doing it in your community, and that would be a great first step to get all the information. There's a video up there as well that you can watch, so check it out.
And then finally, one of the questions that we're asking everybody that joins us is, what is the best example that you found, maybe in your own personal life, of God's love?
I don't know, it was interesting. When I was writing No Ceiling to Hope, I was writing about all these inspirational people from around the world that I'd met and stuff like that. And I often think what happens is the thing that you are most passionate about giving to others, you struggle with yourself. And so I found actually in my own life I was struggling to find hope for stuff I was going through. You know, my dad got cancer, I got health issues, everything started to go wrong. And it isn't a particularly dramatic story, but basically I went to the States, did a little bit of work, and I was out just one day walking around journaling. And I just wanted one of those moments where, you know, God, come on, tell me, what am I meant to do in my life? What am I meant to do in my future? What am I meant to do with this situation and that situation? And I was been getting involved in politics. Should I do politics? Should I do this? Should I do that? And it's almost like God just said, let me love you. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to know that. I just want to know what I should do, you know. And it was like, just let me love you. And I remember that famous story with Mother Teresa. I'm sure all you guys have heard it. It's Mother Teresa and this other guy called John Kavanagh, who basically, he says to Mother Teresa, pray for me. And she says, what do you want prayer for? And he says, I want clarity. And she goes, no, I'm not praying for that. And he was like, you seem to have clarity most of the time, you know, and she goes, never had clarity about anything in my life. All I've ever had is trust. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pray that you'll trust in a loving God, that you know that you're held most of the time. So it's that type of thing that I try and hold on to, rather than experience, maybe trying to think of it as more as obedience, and faith rather as a rival, more as a quest, which I'm still trying to find my way through.